your occupation of your spouse, and I can't read all of it. Okay. Ages of any minor children, city of your residence, and whether you had any prior jury experience.
I'm a manager and president for Kelmore Tank Company. I'm not married, no minor children. I live in Merced, and I've served on multiple juries.
When was the last one?
I want to say maybe 3 years ago. I did federal and president.
But okay, and they were civil or criminal?
Criminal.
Okay. You know, all these other prior jurors, where they were
All criminal.
All criminal. And did you reach verdicts in those cases?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, juror number 2.
I'm a senior nanny at the Mercy Hospital. I do not have a spouse, nor do I have any children. I live here in Merced, and I have 0 jury experience.
Okay, thank you. Juror number 3.
Work at a law in Los Angeles, and I'm not married, nor have children, and my place of residence is Los Angeles. And
Go ahead.
please tell it,
Prior jury experience.
my prior jury experience, I was told on the phone that I didn't have to come in. Last year.
Okay. But you have not actually sit on the jury. Okay, great, thank you.
Your Honor, I'm sorry, I didn't hear the response of the occupation. Do you think you could say that again?
Work at a car wash.
Okay, thank you.
Juror number 4.
I'm a registered nurse. I work at Emmanuel Medical Center. My husband is a cook. I have 5 boys, ages 18, 16, 13, 6, and 1. And I live in Delhi, and I did serve on a jury.
You did serve on this? How long was that ago?
Like 4 years ago.
Civil or criminal?
And
Did you reach a verdict?
yes.
Okay, thank you. Juror number 5.
My occupation is a manager assistant in the dental office. My husband's a manager at a propane company, and I have a minor that is 50, and residence from Delhi, and I'm never sure.
Okay, thank you. Juror 6.
I'm an intervention coordinator at a high school. My husband is a teacher at a high school as well. I have a 6-month-old and a 3-year-old. Live in Merced and no prior jury service.
And prior, thank you. Juror 7.
I'm a social worker with Merced County. My husband is the park superintendent for Merced County. Just adult children. I live in Planada, and I was an alternate about 5 years ago, 4 years
Okay.
ago.
Okay, thank you. Was that a criminal case?
Yes.
Okay. Juror number 8.
I'm retired. My husband is also retired. I have no minor children. They're all grown up. They understand. Been called several times, but I've never received it.
Okay, thank you. Juror number 9.
I am a teacher. My husband is a crop consultant. My minor children are 17, 14, and 8. I live in Westmead and no prior jury service.
Thank you. Juror number 9. Okay, juror number 10.
I'm an environmental biologist for PG&E. I have no spouse, no kids. I live in Los Angeles, California, and I've never served as a jury.
Thank you. Juror number 11.
I'm a bookkeeper. My husband is a truck driver. I have no minor children. I live in Los Angeles, and I've never served.
Okay, thank you. Juror 12.
I'm unemployed right now. I'm not married, nor do I have children. I live in Atwater, and then this is my first time doing grading.
You said you were in school?
No, unemployed.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Juror number 13.
I'm a registered nurse functioning in a leadership capacity. I'm legally separated, so I don't consider myself as a spouse. No minor children. I live in Tomar, and I've never served on a jury.
Okay. Juror number 17.
I'm a
14, sorry.
I'm a community service officer at the Merced Police Department. I'm currently unmarried and have no children. I live in Merced and have no jury service experience.
thank you. Juror 15.
I'm a child support specialist. I don't have a spouse. I have a 16-year-old son that was very sad. I certainly, I want to age myself, probably about 20 something years ago.
Yeah. Criminal or civil?
Criminal.
Okay, and you each were the convicted? Okay. Juror 16.
I work in accounts receivable. My husband is a maintenance specialist. 5 children, the 2 of them are, the minors are 17. City of residence is Justine, and my no prior jury service.
Thank you. Juror 17.
I work for the post office in Monterey. I live in Los Angeles. I am not married, and I have no minor children. And I've never served on the jury.
Okay, thank you. Juror 18.
I am currently unemployed, no spouse, no children, live here in Merced, and no prior service.
Okay, thank you. Juror 19.
I'm a music teacher. My spouse is a graduate student at the UC. We don't have any children. I live in Merced, and I've never sat on a jury.
Okay, thank you. Juror 20. 20.
I'm a high school counselor. My husband's an x-ray tech. We have 3 children, 10, 7, and 5. I live in Merced, and I served on a jury about 10 years ago, criminal, and it came to a verdict.
Okay, thank you.
I'm in
And Juror 20.
management. I'm in management. My spouse is Costco. I have no minor children. I live in Tomar. And I served on a jury about 10 or 11 years ago. And we came to a verdict.
Okay, thank you. All right. Now, I will turn it over to the attorneys. And the defense may go first.
No, they have one. Hi everyone, my name is Wayne Shung. I'm an attorney for defendant Alexandra Paul. And as the judge said, we're going to be probing you for questions of bias. But I just want to clarify what bias means in a legal context, because when you hear someone's biased in everyday thinking and everyday conversation, that sounds like a bad thing, right? It sounds like this racially discriminatory attitude or some hateful attitude you might have. And that's not what I mean at all when I talk about bias. When we talk about bias, all we're saying is that you have some life experience or relationship or prior view that leads you to prejudge this case in a way that makes you not the right fit for this case. So the example I often give is, I'm a huge Warriors fan. I love Steph Curry. If there's a game between the Warriors and the Lakers, I'm going to be biased for Steph. You don't want me to be the ref in that game. And similarly, if you have some pre-existing attitude or preference like I do towards the Warriors, sorry for those of you who don't like the Warriors, but you're wrong, you're not the right juror for a case like this. Okay. So what are some of the issues that you might have a bias on in this case? Now, you've already heard, this is a case involving 2 women who are part of an animal rescue organization in disagreement with an animal production company called Foster Farms. So I'm going to ask you just a few questions about some biases you might have in that sort of disagreement. So to start, I just want to ask if any of you have any experiences with animals. And I think a couple of you have already said yes, I think, in the front. So does anyone else have experience with animals? You can just raise your hands. Okay. So quite a few, maybe half. And I guess let me narrow this. Does anyone else have experience with animals raised for food, commercial? So not for yourself. I think different situation, but commercial. Okay, I think you're 2. And I think your name is Anjanette Eversley, is that right? Great.
Counsel, we're going to refrain from using the, we'll just use badge number.
So badge number, well, sheet number 2. Could you just tell me a little about your experience?
It was for just a few months back in the Philippines, but we just raised pigs and chickens for that. But it's been a while since then.
Okay, and how long ago was that?
About 5 years ago.
5 years ago. Tell me more about that experience. Was it a good experience, bad experience? Did it leave you with any strong views about kind of the production of animals for food?
It was a pretty good learning experience on my part.
Okay. Yeah, tell me more. Why?
It was just something new to learn.
So just a good personal life experience to have at some point in your life. Okay. Did that experience lead you to have any strong views about producing animals for food commercially, how it should be done, how it shouldn't be done?
No.
And were there any misconceptions about the industry or commerce that you cured yourself of as a result of that experience?
No.
No, it was just a good personal experience. Okay, great. Has anyone else had any experiences raising animals commercially for food? Yeah, please go ahead.
My daughter's raised sheep, excuse me, for the fair.
Okay, great. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, it was one of those things, like, it was a project where, you know, they had to be responsible and feed the animal and care for it. And, yeah, I mean, it was a good experience for
Great.
them.
So part of it was just kind of learning good animal welfare standards and
just
how to
be
humanely care for
responsible.
animals.
Sure.
Wonderful. Awesome. Did that lead you to have any strong feelings one way or the other about the production of animals for food? No? This is a good experience for your kids. Great. Sounds wonderful.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Yeah, please.
I was raised on a dairy farm, so although we didn't use the cattle for feed, we raised them for milk.
For sure. Yeah, and tell me.
Sometimes beef.
Okay. Yeah, great. Thank you for sharing that. Can you tell me a little more about that experience?
That was a great experience. I feel very fortunate to have been raised in that environment, and I love animals, but I also recognize and understand that animals are a food source.
For sure. Yeah. And do you think that experience led you to have any strong feelings, one way or the other, about raising animals commercially, or not commercially for that matter? No? Okay, great. So I'll move on then to ask about kind of another possible source of bias, which is about animal advocates. So has anyone ever heard of the organization PETA, for example? Probably everybody. Okay. And these two women you will hear in trial are animal advocates. I won't say more about that yet, but a lot of animal advocates have, let's say, a reputation in society at large, and it's often not a good one. So I confess, I myself once wrote a very negative article about PETA. I was not happy about something they did, and that might make me an unfit juror to adjudicate a case involving PETA specifically. Has anyone ever felt the same way about animal advocates, you know, who maybe went too far or too extreme and have a prior view of animal advocacy they might be willing to share? Does anyone have any particular view of animal advocates at all? Yeah, please, go ahead.
I mean, I'm more in favor of animal advocacy. I have strong feelings, negative feelings about large corporations and mass production of animals for food.
Sure.
And that's just my own personal preference. I don't consume poultry, particularly ones from mass production companies, because I know what goes on behind the scenes.
For sure. Yeah, so tell me more about that. Why are you concerned about that, and what led you to not consume poultry from large corporations?
It's inhumane, the way that the animals are treated, particularly the chickens.
Yeah.
Small little chickens just killed daily before they even have a chance to grow up, so to say. It's also not sanitary, the way that they're raised in those particular environments.
Yeah. Well, tell me more about that. What is your concern about kind of the sanitary conditions?
They're cramped in small corners. They're not given space to freely roam. They're consuming their own feces.
Yeah. And so it sounds like you have some feelings about this.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. That's greatly appreciated. Does anyone else have any views on kind of animal advocacy they'd be willing to share? Yeah, please.
I've been an animal foster for dogs and cats for a local rescue before. I just, I want to take care of them. I like animals.
Okay, great. And that's because you have an interest in just seeing living beings not suffer.
Yeah. There's so many strays.
Yeah, you're right. Well, thank you for doing that. Yeah. So I guess I'll ask again, has anyone heard of any animal advocacy in Merced County, locally? That they've heard about in the news, for example? No? No pre-existing views on that? Does anyone have any particularly strong pre-existing conceptions about what animal advocates do or what they believe? No? Okay. One of the reasons I'm asking these questions is because you'll hear from the judge from the jury instructions, an instruction on petty theft, the offense that has been described to you already. And I'll just read for you a couple elements of petty theft that are in the instructions the judge will read to you. One is that the defendant took possession of property owned by someone else. Another is when the defendant took that property, she intended to deprive the owner of it permanently. And the third is the property taken must have some intrinsic value, however slight. So the judge instructed you that these are the elements of the offense that must be proven beyond a reasonable doubt. And just to clarify again, beyond a reasonable doubt is the highest standard in our legal system. It's not more likely than not. It probably happened. It's not even clear and convincing evidence. That's the standard used if the state wants to take your child away. That's a very high standard. We don't want the state to take people's kids away unless there's real, clear, and convincing evidence that they're mistreating their children. Beyond a reasonable doubt is even higher than that. It means there cannot be a reasonable doubt, and the state must prove each of these elements, and I'll just say them to you again. The defendant took possession of property owned by someone else. When the defendant took the property, she intended to deprive the owner of it permanently. And third, the property taken must have some intrinsic value, however slight. So you're required to presume my client is innocent. So I just want to ask all of you, hearing those elements, can you think of any reason someone accused of taking 2 chickens might not be guilty of that offense? Please, go ahead.
I mean, the intrinsic value aspect, right? A corporation as large as Foster Farms, what is the intrinsic value of 2 chickens?
Exactly, yeah, that's a good point. And so you'll be asked, if you serve in this jury, to look at that question, do the animals have intrinsic value, and determine whether the state proves beyond a reasonable doubt that these animals actually have some value. Is that what you're saying? Okay, so that may be a reason. Any other thoughts? Please, go ahead.
They would have to demonstrate that there was no intention of returning.
Exactly. So intent, right? So this is a concept in the law called criminal intent, right? And the intent that's required here is that the property be deprived of the owner permanently.
Objection, Your Honor. The state's the law.
Objection sustained.
So I'll
I'd
just
ask the
state.
court to read the jury instruction element specifically at this time.
I'm happy to reread it, Your Honor. I have it in front of me.
Yeah, go ahead.
When the defendant took the property, she intended to deprive the owner of it permanently.
And same objection, the state's the law.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, one of the things that you're going to hear in this case, the attorneys will discuss the law, and but when you are to, the law is going to be given by the court when you sit on jury. So if the attorney's comments on the law are not consistent with what the court provides to you, then you need to read you need to follow the court's instruction. Okay. One of the elements when the defendant took the property, the defendant intended to deprive the owner of it permanently, and or to remove it from the owner's possession for so extended a period of time that the owner would be deprived of a major portion of the value or enjoyment of the property. And that's what I'm just going to read you that. Okay.
Thank you for that comment. And then that is the complete instruction. There's a second half that they can either deprive the owner of it permanently, have the intent to deprive the owner of the property permanently, or for so extended a period of time that the owner would be deprived of a major portion of the value. And that comes back to the value question, right? Is this something of value for the company? So I guess my next question for all of you, actually, let me just finish. Can anyone think of any other reasons someone might not be guilty of an offense? Even if they've been charged, again, you're obligated to give these defendants the presumption of innocence. Based on the elements I read to you, can you think of any other reasons someone might be guilty of the offense charged? Nothing else? Okay. We had some good answers already. You guys will make great law students if you ever want to be a law student. So my follow-up question to that is, because this case is partly about intent, right? It's not just about what these defendants did. It was what was on their minds when they did it. And so my next question for you is there anything in your life experience or prior views that would lead you to assess the intent of someone who is passionate about animal advocacy in a way that's biased? And again, I don't mean bias in a negative way. I don't mean to say you're a bad person who's biased. Just that you have some prior view, for example, of animal advocates. They're just so annoying, always complaining about things. They're too extreme. Does anyone have any prior life experience or view that might lead you to have some form of bias towards someone who has a passion for animal advocacy? Yeah, please.
I don't think they're annoying, but I think they're certainly adults who know the difference between right and wrong.
Yeah.
And so if that is not your property, regardless of how you feel about it or what you want to do for the chickens, it's not yours to take.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean,
For
who
me,
wants...
it's about right and wrong.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, who wants someone taking your property? I mean, that's not a good thing. So it sounds like you have kind of a prior view about animal advocates, for example, rescuing a chicken that might not be theirs.
I would say I have a prior view about anybody taking something that's not their
Okay.
animal advocate or not.
Okay. And do you think that prior view might lead you to have some prejudgment in a case where someone's accused of doing exactly that?
I think it potentially could. Yeah.
Potentially could? Okay. And again, when I say prejudgment, that's all I mean when I say bias, right? I don't mean you're a bad person. I don't mean you're racially discriminatory or anything like that. It's just that you've got some experience. Just like I've had experience with the NBA. I like Steph Curry. Sorry. You can argue with me as much as you want. I'm not going to be a fair ref. I'm always going to go with Steph. So in a case involving someone accused of taking a chicken, it sounds like you would have a bias in that regard, in the same way that I would have a bias if I had some prior life experience with you. Is that a fair characterization?
I think so, yes.
Yes, okay. And of course, the judge will instruct you to follow the law and the evidence and try and be impartial, because these defendants are entitled to a fair and impartial jury. But even if you were instructed, it sounds like, based on the strength of your view, and again, it's a fair view, because I agree, who wants anything taken from you? It sounds like even with that sort of instruction, you'd still probably have that sort of prejudgment. Is that fair?
I think that's fair.
Okay. Anything else you want to add about your views on this?
I'm having a hard time reconciling why we're here for 2 stolen chickens, if I'm being honest.
I agree. Totally
I mean,
agree.
and that's just me being honest.
Yeah, fair enough. Absolutely.
Regardless of, I'm not sure I understand why the people are here pursuing the theft of 2 stolen chickens, and how this isn't a case that couldn't have been handled outside of a courtroom. It seems to me an awful waste of resources.
Yeah, I would agree.
And so I feel like that, more than anything, is my bias.
Yeah, I understand. Thank you for sharing that. Does anyone else have anything to share? The question I asked earlier was, do you have any life experience or pre-existing view that would lead you to have a bias against 2 people accused of removing 2 chickens from a truck? Again, understanding what I mean by bias and understanding what I mean by intent. Just what is on these women's minds. But thank you so much for sharing. Anyone else have anything they'd be able or willing to share? Okay, just a couple more questions and then I think I'll be done. One is views on law enforcement, and I know the judge already instructed you that as a juror, you'll be required to look at someone who is an authority figure, a detective, an officer, a deputy. And in ordinary life, you're in many cases required to listen to a lawful order, right? When an officer tells you to do something, you don't debate them or discuss it or say, let's be open-minded about your order. You just kind of follow the rule, right? But in a criminal case or in a judicial case, it's very different, because the officer isn't here as an officer ordering you to comply with an order he's making. He's here as a fact witness, just to present his view of the facts. And in that regard, you have to treat him as no different than anyone else. I know there are a number of individuals who have family members in law enforcement, and thank you and your family members for that service. But the question I have for any of you is understanding what I said about bias and prejudgment. Not saying that you're biased in a negative way. Would any of you have any sort of prejudgment in hearing the testimony of an officer and hearing the testimony of someone who is not an officer and an authority figure for that officer or authority figure over the person who is not an officer? Does anyone have a view like that? Please share. Okay. Okay, I guess my My last question then is, are there any other sources of prejudgment in a case like this? And again, I think we've given you the basic contours of the parties, the dispute, any other sources of prejudgment or bias that any of you might have that would lead you to perhaps not be the right juror for a case like this? Okay. No, I don't think I have any further questions.
All right, thank you. Mr. Little, Mr. Carroll, who's going
His truth is different. Juror number 15, wouldn't you agree with that? Your truth is not necessarily juror number 16's truth. You guys have had different life experiences, correct? And there's a good reason why we have so many people deciding the case, because we don't want a verdict to just be one person's truth. We want it to be the community's truth. Juror number 8, can you see that that's how that's important? All right. So some of you are thinking maybe, because you've been here for what, 3 days back and forth? Yeah. And you're thinking, let's hurry up and start the trial. What is this? Well, I got news for you. This is part of the trial. It's a very important part of the trial, where we get to find out your views. Juror number 13, do you see why we would want to know a little bit about our jurors and their views before we start with the evidence? How about you, juror number 11? Right? Would you buy a car if you didn't even get to see it first?
Oh, no.
All right. So, with respect to this process, I just want to have a conversation. There's a reason why we have, I think, 129 jurors here when we're only going to end up needing, I think, 14. Because there's a presumption that not everyone is fit for every case. Juror number 1, you've been on a lot of juries.
Yes, I have.
Do you think you'd be fit to serve on any case?
No.
Because there's some certain things that might touch a nerve with you.
Correct. Life experiences would influence me in certain cases.
All right. Well, thank you. Does
Not
anybody
this one.
disagree with that? Does anyone disagree with that? How about you, juror number 4? You've been very expressive and nodding and following along, which we like. It feels good when I know I'm not putting people asleep. But do you agree that some cases you'll be more well-suited for than others?
Yeah.
All right. So here's the $64,000 question, and you older jurors know what I'm talking about. Okay. Based on everything you've heard about this case, that it involves a theft from Foster Farms of 2 chickens, is there anybody who feels like, I don't want to be a part of this party? I will be upset if I'm a juror. I will feel like my time is being wasted, and I'm going to be resentful of the whole process. Juror number 20, you're smiling at me. What do you think?
Well, like what the judge said a couple of days ago, we all have things going on. So
Right.
Inconvenience versus hardships.
Do you feel like your time is being wasted?
Not wasted. I mean, I just can think of other things that I should be doing.
Okay. Are you going to let that feeling affect how you approach the case? No? Is there anybody here who's just going to be so PO'd, right? I can't curse in court, but I can say PO'd, that you're like, no, I am not going to be a juror on that case. I can't. How about you, juror number 10? You think you'd be good? Okay, good. Is there anyone amongst you 21 who feel like, can I go, please?
I keep raising my hand. Don't call on me. I can't
Yes.
help it, but I feel very much like this is a waste of time and resources, and I unfortunately I feel like it would. I pride myself on typically being an impartial person. I'm a manager. I have to deal with situations like this all the time, but I cannot push it back.
Okay.
It just keeps coming forward for me.
Right. Right. No,
And I think it could cloud my ability to be impartial.
Thank you. Thank you for being honest. That you're voir diring. You're telling the truth. Okay? Yes?
I feel better now.
Is there anyone who feels similar? Juror number 2, how you doing?
Could be better over here, so.
Okay. Tell me what you're thinking in that same regard.
100% agree with her. What they're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 100% agree with her. This is a waste of time. Literally over 2 chickens.
Do you think that because of the type of case that you're here on and your feelings about the case, that you might let that impact your ability to serve as a juror and follow the law?
Probably.
Okay.
Choose something to get it over with.
Okay. Right. It's like a conversation you don't want to have, right? You think, oh, you tell somebody, I got a phone call. When, in your heart of hearts, you don't have a phone call or you don't need to take it, right? You'd find a way out.
Always.
Okay. Is anybody else? Yes, juror number 6.
Well, I've expressed my dislike for large corporations, and I feel like the value of 2 chickens versus the amount of money corporations are making is not worth the resources that's being provided for this trial. I also expressed the hardships and accommodations that I will need in order to be a juror on this panel, and I still feel that way. If I am chosen, I will need frequent breaks, I'm going to need a room, and I'm going to need a fridge.
Right.
So, I have a 6-month-old.
Okay. All right. So I'm getting ready to move on to another topic. This is your last chance to tell me if, juror number 11, are you raising your hand?
Yeah.
Okay.
I kind of agree with Mr. over here.
Okay. Can you unpack that for me?
Well, it's just for 2 chickens and as big as Foster Farm is and going through all this money and resources, people's time on 2 chickens is a little bit much.
Do you think that would impact the way you approach this case? It could. All right. Juror number 3, I know you're not speaking up, but when the gentleman in the audience said that he totally agreed with juror number 13 in response to Mr. Shung's questioning, I saw you nod in your head, though. Can you tell me why you were nodding your head? About when we were talking about the 2 chickens and the case kind of, in some people's view, being not a good use of time and resources.
Yeah, I feel like this is a waste of time, like everybody, I feel like everybody feels the same way.
Okay, all right. So would that impact your jury service? The way that you approach this case and your ability to follow the law and give everybody their due process?
I guess so, yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, going once, going twice, going, gone. Okay, we're going to talk about something else now. All right, so this is a case, we all know whodunits, right? We all love whodunits, right? Juror number 7, do you read mystery books sometimes? Do you watch mystery movies?
Not really.
Okay, but you probably know someone who does, who likes mysteries, right? Half the shows on TV are kind of like that. This is not a whodunit, guys. The incident that we're here about is on video. This is not a whodunit. This is a whydunit. Is there anybody in our group of 21 jurors who is going to think, if it's on video, I don't need to hear the why question. I don't need to answer the why question. Game over. Let's go home. Juror number 14, what do you think?
I think if it's shown on video, then it's proof that they're guilty of it.
Okay. And as far as the why question goes, not important.
Not important.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. Appreciate that. Is there anyone else? Juror number 13, same? Okay. Anyone else?
I agree.
Juror number 10, juror number 12. Any other people popping up? Do you feel the same way, that that's it? You don't care about the why question? I don't want to put you on the spot.
No, it's not that I don't care about the why, I already know like the why, you know?
Okay.
So it's like,
You can decide the why based on the video.
yeah.
Okay. Your number 10, same? All right. So you also, if we, after you saw the video, if we spent 2 or 3 or 4 more days talking about the why question, you'd be kind of tuned out?
Yeah, I mean, you got caught on camera.
Okay. We live in the video generation, right? Right? So, and the reason why all these videos get so many hits is that people think that videos are, that's the evidence, right? That's the gold standard. Is there anyone else who feels the same way? I know people do. Just come on. Don't be afraid. I don't bite. Juror number 1, I see you chuckling. Are you chuckling because I'm funny, or are you chuckling because you feel the same way?
No, I'm chuckling because you're funny.
All right. Does anyone else feel like if we see a video, I'm going to do something my mom used to do. If we see the video, that's it. So juror number 5, even if you see a video and that shows the actions, you'd still be interested in hearing the why? Why would you say that? Because you want to know. What is this old saying? Inquiring minds want to know. Right? How about you, juror number 4?
I would want to know why.
Right. How about you, juror number 17? Would you want to be curious about the why question, or would it be kind of like...
Videos aren't always cut and dry.
Right.
And they're not always from start to finish.
Right. It's
So that you have to know the why.
it shows you a few moments in time. Right? How about you, juror number 15? Would you want to know the story behind the video?
Can't go off the video. I just watched your video over, and I can't just go off a video.
Exactly.
I've seen somebody there and they're gone. And I'm like, wait, but what happened?
Or you'd be calling the police on every Amazon driver, right? Okay. How about you, juror number 8? Would you care about the why question? Sometimes 3, right? What they say? Yeah. Juror number 9, you've been staring at me very intently, and I can tell the wheels are turning. What do you have to add to this?
I'm just kind of taking it all in.
Okay.
So,
Would you want to know the why question, or would the video be enough for you?
I want to know everything.
Okay. All right. Good. You want to be very thorough. Make sure you're arriving at a correct decision. Good. Good. Juror number 18, you're quiet. I sometimes pick on the quiet ones. Hope you don't get mad. Okay. How do you feel about what's going on so far? Because sometimes people are just too reluctant to speak up, even though they want to, or they maybe agree with something that someone's saying. Based on everything that we're talking about, do you feel like you could be fair and impartial in this case?
Yes, I do.
Do you feel like you could faithfully serve, even though this is a case about 2 chickens and there's a video?
Yeah.
You want to know the why?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Thank you, sir. How about you, juror number 19? I didn't really specify. She's like, well, what are you asking? The video. You want to know why?
Yes, I want to know why.
Why?
I mean, I can also infer why based on what I've heard so far, but like, I don't want to infer, I want to know.
Right. They have a whole old, I'm sure you know the old saying about when you assume, right? I'm not going to finish it. But you want to know why, right? Okay. All right. Anyone else have some, they just can't hold it in, they want to talk more on this topic? Or are you ready for me to move on to something? Ready? Move on? Okay. So, under the law, there's sometimes you can take the law in your own hands. Class example, self-defense, right? When there's no time to call an officer and your safety is at risk, you can take the law into your own hands. You can also take the law in your own hands. There's something in the law called self-help, where if you believe you have something that you have a right to, you can take it, with certain limitations. If you concluded, in this case, that the defendants, in some way, shape, or form, took the law into their own hands, would that be a negative or a positive for you? Juror number 21.
Probably a negative,
Why do you say?
because they shouldn't be doing something that's illegal.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you. See, I'm trying to see who's got, looks like they've got something to say. Juror number 6. We're getting some eye contact here. What do you think? Are there occasions where you think it's okay to take the law into your own hands?
Oh, I think we want to discuss the philosophy of law, who created laws, and who's benefiting from laws that are created. I have feelings around that, and I do feel that it's not always cut and dry.
Okay. If you heard a baby crying for 3 hours in the house next door, would you worry about trespassing, or would you just bust right in? Bust right in, right? How about you, juror number 16?
That's exactly what I was thinking about, maybe in a car and bust the car and take the horse.
Objection, Your Honor, sidebar.
Is critically important. You might think this is, well, you know, why are we fighting about 2 chickens? And the attorneys can talk some more about why we're here. But you know, I want to assure you that none of your time is being wasted, and I hope you don't think that way. And that's why we're moving through this methodically, we're moving through this in an orderly way, according to the law. And it takes time. And our country is a country of laws, and we want to work according to what the laws tell us to do. And so it takes time to do that. And so, you know, I understand the feeling, but I'm going to ask you to continue to be patient with the court, with us. And I'm going to ask you to come back to court at 1:30. Well, we resume at 1:30. We're getting pretty close to the point where the attorneys, the district attorney will have an opportunity to do some follow-up questions after Mr. Little. I think he's getting pretty close to being done. And then we'll start the selection process at that point. Okay? We'll call it the challenges at that point. All right, so have a good lunch again. You've heard a lot more about this case than you did yesterday. And this is to the people in court too as well. I'm going to give you the same admonition. Please do not talk about this case among yourselves. Do not inform your opinions. And do not conduct any research. Okay? And so we'll see you back here.
Your Honor, if I may, counsel and the parties are not allowed to speak to the jurors. I just want to make sure they know
yes,
that.
Please do not speak to counsel. If they try to speak to you, do not speak to them, nor you try to speak